Moving into assisted living? 7 harsh realities no one warns you about. Have you ever caught yourself staring out the window, wondering if life might be changing faster than you expected? One day, you're gardening, making your own meals, going about your routine, and then suddenly, things feel just a little harder. The stairs seem steeper. The laundry basket seems heavier. And maybe you've started hearing suggestions from your kids, or even your doctor, gently nudging you to think about the future. It's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? Let's be honest, the idea of moving into assisted living doesn't exactly fill most people with excitement. It can bring up feelings of fear, loss, even shame. But here's the thing, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's the smartest and safest choice. And just because it's tough doesn't mean it's the end of your independence or joy. But it does come with a few realities that no one really talks about until you're already in it. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Not to scare you, but to prepare you. To give you the full picture so you can make the best decision for yourself, with eyes wide open. Because when you know what to expect, you're in control. And being in control? That feels a whole lot better than being blindsided. Let's start with one of the hardest parts right off the bat, the emotional weight of leaving your home. You might think, oh, I'll get used to it, or it's just a place. But the truth is, home is where your life happened. It's where you raised your kids, celebrated birthdays, and maybe even said a few goodbyes. It's where your favorite chair sits by the window and your teacups are stacked just so. Leaving all that behind can feel like you're leaving a piece of yourself behind, too. It's not just the physical stuff, it's the memories. The comfort of knowing where everything is. The simple pleasure of being in a space that's entirely yours. When you move into assisted living, even if the apartment is lovely and the staff is kind, there's often a sense of being a guest. And that can be jarring. What helps? Well, give yourself time. Bring pieces of your old home with you. A blanket that smells like your laundry soap, a clock that ticks the way you like, framed photos of your family. And don't feel guilty if it takes a while to feel settled. That's normal. You're not just changing your address, you're changing the rhythm of your life. And speaking of rhythm, that brings us to the second reality, you're not in charge of your schedule anymore, not entirely, anyway. In your own home, you eat when you want. You shower when you want. You stay up watching TV as late as you like. In assisted living, there's a structure. Meals are served at certain times. Activities have a set schedule. Caregivers knock at your door for medication or check-ins. And while this can bring some helpful routine, it can also feel, well, a little like being back in school. Some folks find that comforting. Others find it stifling. Especially if you've been independent your whole life, having to fit into someone else's routine can feel like a loss of freedom. But here's something to remember, you can speak up. Most assisted living communities are more flexible than people think. Don't be afraid to say, I prefer to eat breakfast at 9 instead of 8, or I don't want to join the bingo group, thank you. This is still your life. Yes, the environment is more structured, but you don't have to become invisible within it. The key is to advocate for yourself early and often. Now, the third reality, and this one might surprise you, is that loneliness doesn't automatically go away just because you're surrounded by people. In fact, some people feel even lonelier after the move. Why? Because meaningful connections take time. You might be in a dining room with 20 other residents, but if you're not really clicking with anyone, it can feel like you're eating alone. The social activities might be well planned, but if you're grieving the loss of your old neighborhood or missing your family, it's hard to put on a smile and jump into game night. There's also the fact that not everyone you meet will be your cup of tea. Just because someone's your age doesn't mean you'll have things in common. And let's face it, some days, you just don't feel like being chatty. That's okay. You're allowed to have quiet days. But don't shut the door completely. Give yourself the space to mourn the changes, yes, but also stay open. You might find a friend when you least expect it. Maybe it's the woman who knits quietly in the corner, or the man who always seems to have a crossword puzzle nearby. Start small. A hello in the hallway. A shared laugh during an exercise class. Friendships in later life don't always come fast, but they can run deep once they do. And if you're someone who already had a rich social life before the move, try to keep those connections alive. Invite people to visit. Call them often. You're not cut off just because you changed your zip code. These early shifts, letting go of your home, adjusting to a new routine, feeling a bit isolated even in company, they can be tough. But they're also manageable, especially when you face them with honesty and support. So take a deep breath. You're not alone in this. Thousands of others have made this move before you, and many of them have found peace, purpose, and even joy in their new chapter. It just takes time, patience, and a bit of courage. Now that we've touched on some of the emotional realities and day-to-day shifts, let's talk about the next things that can catch people off guard. One thing that often surprises people after moving into assisted living is just how expensive it really is. You might have seen a price tag in the brochure and thought, okay, that's manageable. But what the brochure doesn't always show you are all the extras. The base cost might cover your apartment, basic meals, and a few scheduled activities, but then you start adding things on. Maybe you need help with medication, or dressing, or transportation to doctor's appointments. Each of those can come with a separate fee. Even things like laundry service, beauty appointments, or specialized dietary needs can add up quickly. It's a bit like flying on a budget airline. The ticket looks cheap at first, but by the time you've paid for your bag, your seat, and a snack, you're wondering where your money went. That's how assisted living can feel if you're not careful, and it can be overwhelming, especially if you're on a fixed income. That's why it's so important to ask detailed questions before you move in. Don't just ask what's included, ask what's not included. Ask what changes in cost if your health changes. Because while most people think about how they feel today, very few think about how their needs might look 6 months or a year from now. And it's okay to talk money. Don't feel awkward about it. You're not being cheap, you're being smart. You worked hard your whole life for what you have, and you deserve to spend it in a way that brings peace of mind, not surprise bills at the end of the month. Talk with your family, your financial advisor, or someone you trust. Make a plan that works for you, not just today, but down the road. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get mentioned enough, the way your sense of purpose can shift after you move. When you lived at home, maybe you had a garden to tend to. Maybe you helped babysit the grandkids, volunteered at church, or were the go-to person in your neighborhood who always had a spare cup of sugar. You had routines, responsibilities, things that gave your day meaning. But in assisted living, that can change, and for some, it feels like being gently pushed into the passenger seat of your own life. It's easy to fall into the habit of just coasting. Meals are prepared for you. Housekeeping is handled. Activities are scheduled. And while that can feel like a break at first, a bit like a vacation, it can also make you feel like you've lost your sense of purpose. You're not needed in the same way, and that can quietly chip away at your confidence, your motivation, even your mood. But here's the truth, purpose doesn't have to retire just because you moved. It just changes shape. Maybe you can't dig in the garden the way you used to, but maybe you could help water the shared plants in the community courtyard. Maybe you don't organize events anymore, but you could welcome new residents and help them feel less alone on their first day. Maybe you're not cooking dinner for your whole family, but you could start a recipe sharing circle or teach someone how to make your famous casserole. Little things count. In fact, they count more than you know. Feeling useful, having a reason to get up in the morning, that's what keeps your spirit strong. So ask yourself, what lights you up? What are the little joys that still feel possible, even now? Find one or two, and let them guide you. That spark of purpose? It's still there. It just might be waiting for a new way to shine. Now, let's talk about something a little more subtle, but just as important, the way people may start treating you differently. Sometimes, without meaning to, others begin to speak to you like a child once you're in assisted living. They soften their tone, or they assume you can't do things on your own. They might talk about you more than to you, especially in front of doctors or staff. It's not always meant to be disrespectful, but it can feel that way. It can make you feel like your voice is fading, even when you still have plenty to say. If that's happening to you, speak up. You don't need to be loud or angry, just clear. Say, I can answer that question myself, or I'd like to speak directly to the nurse, if that's okay. You're still the expert on your own life. You know what you like, what you need, and how you feel. Don't be afraid to remind people of that. And if you ever feel dismissed or ignored, bring it up. Whether it's with the staff or with your family, your voice deserves to be heard. You didn't lose your value just because you changed your address. You didn't lose your wisdom, your humor, your experience. You're still you, and that matters. As we've seen, there are a lot of adjustments that come with moving into assisted living. Some are emotional, some are practical, and some are things you might not even notice until you're living it day by day. But knowing about them ahead of time can make all the difference. It can help you walk into this new phase of life with more confidence and clarity, and that's something no one can take from you. Let's keep going, because there's one more challenge many people face that's often left unspoken. And once you understand it, it can make a huge difference in how you move forward, and that's the emotional toll of watching the people around you decline. This is one of the toughest, quietest realities of assisted living that nobody really talks about. When you move in, you're entering a community where many people are facing the same things: aging bodies, changing minds, some even living with memory loss or chronic illness. And while there's comfort in being around others who understand what you're going through, there's also a weight that comes with it. You may form friendships, only to see someone's health suddenly take a turn. You might witness decline up close, maybe even loss. And that can stir up some deep feelings: fear, sadness, even anxiety about your own future. It's hard not to wonder, will that be me someday? These moments can be deeply emotional. But you don't have to carry that weight alone. Most good assisted living communities offer some form of emotional support: counselors, support groups, or even just a kind staff member willing to sit with you over a cup of tea and listen. If that's available, take advantage of it. Talking about it doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. And if nothing formal is in place, you can always start something. Sometimes just sitting with someone who understands and saying, "This is hard," is the beginning of healing. It's also helpful to focus on what you can control. You may not be able to stop time, but you can choose how you spend it. Whether it's nurturing your own health, staying mentally active, or finding new ways to laugh, to create, to connect, those choices matter. They don't erase the pain, but they help balance it. You are not just a witness to decline. You are still living, still growing, still giving. That matters more than ever. And here's the final reality, one that comes as a bit of a shock to many people: moving into assisted living doesn't automatically fix everything. It's easy to imagine that once you make the move, life will feel smoother. That the stress will melt away. That you'll be happier, safer, more at ease. And in some ways, yes, that can be true. But it's not a magic switch. If you struggled with loneliness before, it might still linger. If you had health issues or emotional wounds, they won't vanish just because you're in a new building with polished floors and a dining room menu. Assisted living is a support system, not a cure-all. The real truth is this: how you experience this new chapter depends a lot on how you approach it. You can move in with bitterness, resentment, or fear, and those feelings are totally valid, but they'll make it harder to find peace. Or you can bring with you a sense of curiosity, a willingness to adapt, and a little bit of grace for yourself and everyone around you. You don't have to be happy every minute of the day. That's not realistic. But if you can allow yourself to be open to new routines, new people, even new versions of yourself, you might just find that this chapter holds more joy than you expected. And let me say this clearly: choosing to move into assisted living is not giving up. It's not failure. It's not weakness. It's courage. It's you saying, "I want support. I want safety. I want to make a decision that gives me the best quality of life I can have." That's something to be proud of. If you've already made the move, or you're standing at the edge of it, wondering if it's time, you're not alone. So many people are walking this same road, quietly, bravely, one step at a time. And while there are challenges, there's also hope. There's still laughter, still friendship, still moments that take your breath away in the best possible way. So let's take a moment to remember the most important things from this conversation. Leaving your home is hard, but it's not the end of feeling at home. Adjusting to a new schedule might feel limiting, but your voice still matters. Loneliness doesn't disappear overnight, but connection is always possible. Costs can add up, so plan wisely. Purpose doesn't retire. You can still create, still contribute. People may treat you differently, but that doesn't define you. And no, this move won't fix everything, but it can be the beginning of something new, something stable, something even joyful. If you've made it to the end of this video, I just want to say, you're doing better than you think. It takes a strong heart to even consider change, let alone take the steps toward it. So be kind to yourself. Be patient with the process. And remember, every stage of life has its own rhythm, its own lessons, its own beauty. If you found any part of this helpful, or if you've had your own experience with assisted living, good or bad, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel a little less alone. And if this video gave you some clarity, comfort, or even just a sense of being seen, go ahead and click that like button. It really helps more people find this kind of content. And if you'd like more honest conversations like this, about aging, health, and living well at any age, don't forget to subscribe. Here's to facing change with courage, to staying true to who you are, and to finding joy, yes, real joy, even in places you didn't expect. You're not done yet. You're just getting started on a new path. And I'm rooting for you every step of the way.